too.
What?
This is Penn Sunday School, and to our listening ears,
Are you praying?
Yeah.
sings and round
All hell is broken loose. We're going. Yeah. Brothers and sisters, welcome to Penn's Sunday School, starring Penn Jillette. My name is Michael Godot, and without Matt Donnelly, we are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios right here in Las Vegas. Sure, this week Penn got his head encased in plastic, but the real news is we have a last-minute surprise. Joining us on the show is our mentor, our hero, and the grandest skeptic of them all, the Amazing Randi is here. Here he is, preaching love, Mr. Penn Jillette.
Yeah, here we are, preaching the love with Randy.
The Amazing Randi.
Now, you would think if we're going to have Randy on, the guest that would excite our audience the most, we would have billboarded.
Yeah, sure.
Put a big thing on Twitter. But Randy came in like a thief in the night.
That's true.
Like Jesus Christ.
Very true. I admit that.
I got a phone call from Davey on Friday just saying, oh, by the way, Randy and I are in town.
Just that. That's it.
That matter of fact.
That's how much warning.
That matter of fact. No parade, no fireworks. But you get sick of that parade and fireworks, right?
It's with all the horns and
I'm sorry.
You come in. Now, I was telling Randy.
The horns and drums.
I was telling Randy that every night at the Big Penn Teller show, somebody comes up to me and says, "How's Randy doing?" So answer them yourself.
Really?
How's Randy doing?
How's Randy doing?
really. I guess they're expecting a different answer. Or hoping for it.
How is Randy doing? How's 89 years old treating Randy?
Yeah, no, fine, really. I'm surprised, except that I've never done, and this is true now, I've never done anything really stupid like narcotics in my life,
All right.
ever. And never had any want to, any desire or need for such a thing.
And you were never a cigarette smoker?
No, never.
So that helps a little bit in longevity.
Yeah, my parents were big smokers. My God.
Oh, were they? Ray?
Oh, yes. They never finished a meal before lighting up a cigarette just to make sure they had one lit that they could puff on immediately as soon as they finished supper or whatever.
Really? Yeah. Well, of course, that was the time, too.
Yeah.
You had,
very true, very true.
it wasn't just... And you never were a smoker at all?
No, never had any interest in it when I saw what it did to my parents.
Yeah.
You know, they were dependent on it. They had to have it on time and the right length of cigarette and everything.
Yeah, that seems to me like, we talk about screaming at an Elvis concert. Have you had anything you loved that much that you thought, God, I have to have this before I finish this meal? I don't know if I'm missing out or if this is a horrible thing.
Yeah.
They seem to enjoy it, though, right?
Oh, yeah. They
Immensely.
No, I think they need it. Well, I do not think they need it. I know that they need it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very powerful thing. It happens.
Very addictive.
So I've never even had a puff on a cigarette. The one time we tried to do it on one of the specials, I couldn't hold a lit cigarette in my mouth. I apologize again.
Yeah. Well, I because I did fire eating, and we would end our show with lighting a cigarette off my mouth, and I would have a cigarette, and our crew would smoke, and I would go over with the crew and have a cigarette or two, and then we were working on a movie, and of course I was a non-smoker, but I was borrowing cigarettes from the crew all the time.
Oh, wow.
So I said to the prop guy, I've been borrowing a lot of cigarettes. Why don't you get cigarettes for the guys I borrow cigarettes from? So then I was having the prop guy on the movie buy cigarettes for the guys in the crew so I could borrow them but not have bought a pack. And after about 3 months of that, I went, wait a minute, I'm a smoker. And then I quit. So I had like 3 months during which I was a
So you
smoker.
were a smoker. I never heard that at all. That's amazing. No, I'm amazing, but that's astonishing.
I never saw it that way. And the instant I saw it that way, I just stopped. But it's amazing how your mind will cheat you. I'm just going to do this right now. I'm just going to do this right now. And you were never a big drinker, right?
No.
And
never.
during your anti-war days, were you ever a big pothead?
No. Oh no, I never smoked.
Yeah,
Never smoked.
nothing.
Never drank.
Huh? You're in good company here.
And you're 89 years old.
So we have that to look forward to if all goes well.
Well, everybody asks you how you're feeling when you get to be 89. But Randy, what are you thinking? What's on your mind mostly nowadays?
What am I thinking?
Yeah.
Next to nothing. But no, I'm constantly thinking. It's a strange process, Penn. I find now that I'm starting to remember people like Mr. Tovell. You wouldn't know Mr. Tovell, of course, but he was a high school teacher of mine who inspired me and got me interested in physics. And, well, not got me interested. I was already interested in it, but he resolved a lot of things for me. He was big, tall guy, very gray, and a giant to me, just a giant. He used to go up to the board at Oakwood Collegiate Institute, where I was almost educated. They had a 2-minute bell, and that 2-minute bell was just a ding, and you heard that, and you knew that in 2 minutes you had to change class.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredible. Tavel would go over to the blackboard, and there was always a part of the blackboard that had some tape on it that you couldn't read what was underneath it. So he would take that off and point to it, and the bell would go. He had remarkable timing on that, and we had to copy it down. It was usually a perpetual motion machine or something like that, something that had some doubt about it, whether it would really work. And the question was, does it work? And how does it work? And why? And why are we worried about this? Why are we concerned about this? And the class would leave silently, just shuffling. That's all you heard in our classroom, leaving the physics class. That was wonderful. And I remember sometimes I knew what the gimmick was, you know, a bit of leverage or something like that. But
Now, you were a good student?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, very good student. Now, you're sitting at a table with people. I guess Godot had he had a week of college or something?
Yeah, I had a week of college. I'm 3 English credits short of an Associate of Science degree.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Really?
I was, yeah.
But
I'll be a forest ranger. You know how important that is.
you didn't go to college.
Mm-mm.
And as a good student, I mean, I get asked this all the time. Why didn't you end up in a college?
Very interesting. That's a good question. Penn, I almost gave you that question in writing before the program, but it is a good question, I think. I sat down to the first examination that I wrote was English literature. And with reference to, I think I can almost remember this word for word, with reference to Shakespeare's Macbeth, show that Lady Macbeth was the real cause of his downfall. And I looked at this and I thought, come on, I never knew the lady, but I just scrawled across the sheet of paper, I cannot support this, and signed it with my name and got up and left and I never went back to my examination.
That was it, that one question.
That was it.
That was the end of it.
Yeah.
So you were actually just a gender justice warrior.
I like that. I got to write that down.
In the very, very early days. It was the idea of giving up individual responsibility for Macbeth's action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't blame Lady Macbeth at all. I think she was a bitch, but she had a right to do that.
And until that moment, had you intended to go to college? Because I know when I was in high school, if you were a certain level of success, there was no doubt you were going to go to college. But you're an earlier time when that wasn't quite the given, right?
That's great. It's difficult to explain, but I don't think I ever had any intention of going to college. I thought maybe I would leave a couple of years go by and then go to college. Mm-hmm. And the system was designed to accommodate that in Canada. And I guess I did the wrong thing to a certain extent it turned out to be this, you see, that you see sitting before you there. But, yeah, it was a tough decision to make. But when I wrote this down about Lady Macbeth, I felt very satisfied and freed. And I walked out into the hall and I thought, that was the right thing to do.
You know, as anybody who heard the show and listened to Lawrence O'Donnell went to Harvard.
Yes.
And when I talked to him about going to college or not going to college, specifically that particular liberal arts college, he says to me, we've talked about this many times, he says to me that the only reason to go to college is that then you never have to explain why you didn't go to college. And he says that when you walk into a room, he said, and he actually used you as an example. He said, when Randy or you walk into a room, you spend the first 15 minutes showing people that you are competent, deserve to be there, and know things. He said, if you have a college, an Ivy League college attached to your name, that 15 minutes goes away.
Yes.
You just walk in, you're done.
I like
Very Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very, very. I like that very much.
He said, it's just, you don't have to ever prove that, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it's a good thing not to have to prove that. I think, and forgive me for speaking perhaps too frankly, but your insecurity, that slight amount of insecurity you have that you didn't go to college, when you're in a room discussing someone who's done a fraud in science and everyone else there has a PhD and you finished high school, I think that little bit of I have to prove something is a good thing. I think part of the way you speak is to show people you've done your research.
To be. No, there's another thing too here. I really think that Canadian high schools at that period of time when I was going to high school, they had different standards, much different from the United States. Mm-hmm. And I found out that from Canada, I could go to the United States and step into a school that was much advanced over what I had been assigned by the examinations and such.
Well, that's we have a good friend from Finland, and when she came over to study in the U.S. For her college, she found that much of the stuff had been covered in high school over there. But of course, Finland is cheating because they throw out people who aren't doing well.
That's right.
And the U.S. wants to get everybody through. So obviously, that's something you weigh. Yeah. If you're able to throw people out of high school, you can have a much more advanced high school.
Oh yeah.
If you want to get everybody through, but it's just logic. You can't do that.
The standards in American schools, I think, are very poor.
Yeah,
very poor.
But we're getting everybody through them.
Yeah. And that seems to count somehow.
Well, the food is so bad, but there's so much of it.
That is true. That's true. That's a good philosophy, as a matter of fact.
That's also one of the things you talked about with come up many times in the investigation of the paranormal. Mm-hmm. None of the evidence is good, but there's so much of it.
There's a lot of it, yes. And it goes in all directions and usually ends up with more about this later. And period, and a new paragraph starts, and you never come back to it.
No, I don't know how much you've been keeping up with the news lately, but Trump has
Who?
Yeah, exactly. He has obliterated with his craziness all the other news.
Yeah.
But a story in the New York Times front section, which if we had a president who was not tweeting insanity every day, would have been breathtaking, was that the Air Force was actually looking into UFOs and had pictures that they couldn't explain. Did you follow that story at all?
Oh, I didn't follow the story because I knew it was Trump. But
No, not Trump. This is a separate thing. What I'm saying is Trump was taking so much of the news, this thing that I thought was rather startling.
Right, that we're spent $12 million researching it.
Yeah, $12 million.
yeah, I remember seeing that article. I somehow associated it with Trump. I don't know how come.
Yeah.
But I did automatically almost. But it's astonishing to think that a man like Trump, who, when he's not looking at the prompter, Penn, he looks to the prompter at one side, and then he'll often pause in the middle of it and look at the audience. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's not written for him, so he doesn't make any sense.
Yes, and even when he's reading, he doesn't read well. So what was the story on the...
$20 million in research on UFOs. A secret Pentagon program existed for at least 3 years and spent more than $20 million on research.
I'd like a small portion of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I could have saved them a lot. $1 million, I'd have told you could have stayed home. The program reportedly examined cases including incidents of military pilots claiming to have seen flying objects that appeared to defy the laws of physics.
And that's where it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. 2007 through 2012. Though may still exist in some capacity.
And they have one of the things covered was that they have a warehouse where they have some artifacts that they think might be extraterrestrial. And nothing was said about if they did any study of these things, just they have a warehouse.
Yeah,
It would seem if you had a warehouse, well, I mean, extraterrestrial doesn't mean much. I mean, everything here is at one point extraterrestrial, right? But
full of balsa wood kites and things like that. Where these extraterrestrials get balsa wood?
That's why they come here. You can't get balsa anywhere else.
can't get good balsa.
Exactly.
That's true.
You want a good, clean, flying paper airplane or wood airplane.
But it is really one of the things that's happened with Trump being in the White House is other news goes away.
Wait a minute. You just said Trump being in the White House. When you say that, Penn,
I know, it doesn't seem
doesn't
right,
sound
does it?
right. I have to go back to it again.
It's just crazy. And then it becomes, King Kong versus Godzilla. Well, maybe we'll put up Oprah against him. How about we put out somebody who was actually qualified? That's not even considered anymore.
No.
Anyone who wants to be president should not be allowed to be president. That's the basic rule, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Should just be assigned like jury duty. Fuck, I got picked. I got to go be president for 2 years. I think that's a good assignment.
Yeah, wouldn't be bad.
Give you a really good retirement because your life is pretty screwed up after you do that 2 years.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to do it.
Well, when did you become a citizen of the United States of America, Randy?
Oh, when? Years are pretty hard for me to.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
To assign.
But,
Some time ago.
You've been an American citizen for a while.
I got to tell you.
You told the story of how you did the exam.
Oh yeah.
The other
I
day.
already told that story.
Not to anybody but me.
Okay.
It's a wonderful story.
Yeah. Well, I was doing the radio program. That was an all-night program on WOR AM and FM, and I was tolerably well known because I did it from midnight until 5 in the morning. And if you can't get through to someone at that point, then you're wasting your time.
And this is New York.
Yeah, in New York
Late
City.
50s, early
And
60s.
It was on open channel, so it covered the United States pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you tuned it very carefully. Well, it was a case of.
You were going to immigration to get your citizenship.
Yeah, I was, and I had some papers with me at that time when I was sitting waiting for the studio to open up and such, and I just set them aside and didn't pay much attention to them. I was doing a program after all, and I had to pay attention to what I was saying. And when I got in there, the fellow said to me, he off air, he said to me, I know somebody with the Immigration Service, they may facilitate this for you. And I said, no, I don't think I need that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can answer the questions and such. He said, oh, okay. But then I thought about that afterwards. And I actually called this office in Freehold, New Jersey. Isn't that a great name for a place where you're going to go for your immigration examination?
Freehold.
Yeah. And I remember I was called into the office. Now, I was doing a radio program, and they were very considerate of me because they knew that I until 3 in the afternoon, I wasn't really awake. And so they called me and asked me to come in, and I agreed, and I drove up there, wondering, I wonder what's going to happen. And as I entered the studio, 6 or 8 people came to me. Oh, this is Mr. Randi. Is this so-and-so?
You mean the office?
Yeah, the office, yeah. And the fellow sat me down. Now, this is an immigration officer. And he sat me down, and he had a sheaf of papers in front of me, pen that you wouldn't believe. You just wouldn't believe. And luckily, I wasn't asked all those questions, or I'd still be there. And not having answers, too. So he shuffled through the papers, and he said, I have some questions to ask you here, Mr. Randi. And by the way, I love your program, and I listen every chance I get. And I thought, that's a step forward right there, you see. And so he shuffled down to his paper. Oh, this is good, yes. Who was the first president of the United States? And I fumbled around, and then I came up with Abraham Lincoln. And I thought, no, that doesn't sound right. Close, but that's what he said to me. And we weren't on the air. Now, I wasn't doing radio. I was just talking with a man across the table.
Right. At an immigration office.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this sounded important to me, and I thought, oh, God, I fumbled it already. And I remember distinctly the expression on his face. He looked mildly astonished, but then I smiled at him, and he thought, oh, he's putting me on. And then he said, who was the second president of the United States? And I said, Richard Nixon? And he said, close, but... And then he looked down at the sheet of paper. What a great moment this was. There were the little check boxes, and he started to check the boxes and moved the paper forward and moved the sheet over, and then he said, oh, you'd know all this. You'd know all this. Oh, yeah. Oh, you'd certainly know all of this here. And he just drew a line through all this. And he stood up. This is hard for me to tell you. He stood up and reached across the table. I stood up, and he held out his hand. And he said, welcome to the United States of America. That was illegal. It was, and I realized it, but I had to accept it. Because this was a great gesture by this gentleman who had been a fan of the program, and I never quite got over that. And when I left the office, I realized that I had passed, and I had to go to an immigration class with foreigners in it. Oh, God. It was astonishing. We had every nationality you could possibly, every color and size and shape of person. And I was looking around really pleased at what I was seeing, because I saw people of different colors and different eye structure and such, you know. And the magistrate came out, and he handed out certificates, each one with a name on it. And he came to me, and I just thanked him. I didn't know what to say. I just said, thank you, sir. And I put it aside. And then he asked the whole classroom to stand up. And he said, raise your hand. And it was the Pledge of Allegiance. And I looked around the room. Everybody was crying.
Yeah.
Everybody was weeping, but smiling at the same time. And that's a weird sight to see.
And those are the people we want in the United States.
And those are the people we got at that meeting at least. But look what's happening now.
Yeah.
That skin is very dark. There's something wrong with you because your skin is dark.
Yeah, it sure seemed like that time was over. And I have, as you know, I am a pathological optimist, and I seem to be able with all evidence against me to spin anything in the positive direction. And I have to think that like jihad, the resurgence of racism is the death throes. It just seems like this is a small group of people who are so panicked that their way of life is going away, that they're just fighting in the ugliest ways possible.
Yeah,
And I think that Trump is a partial expression of that.
I hope you're right, Penn. I hope you're right. I sincerely hope you're right. And if not, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we're in big trouble. We're really in big trouble. And all of this stuff is very, very believable for this country when I was a child. But I just find it so I just can't accept it in the 21st century. It just
It felt like so much of it was just gone.
just gone.
And I guess we were wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, our experience of it was gone.
Yeah, we were cut off from the people that were feeling that. But there's also, it's so strange. But there's, my mom and dad were New Englanders, and very much were taught not to complain and talk about their problems. When I went into the hospital and my dad was told he was going to be blind and that there was nothing they could do about it, my dad took a stoic attitude toward it and was making jokes within half an hour. And anybody, you didn't need any sort of shrink degree to know that my dad was torn apart and destroyed. And he concealed that completely. And that is something that over the past 50 years has become something that we ridicule. And there's what's, in jokes and so on, consider the California point of view where you talk about your feelings and you do all this and I'll do all that. But I kind of think there may be something very, very good about pretending to be a little better than you are. And pretending to be a little stronger, pretending to be a little more together. I know that point of view, that lying about who you are, is ridiculed. But I also think when they say they do these surveys, and people don't want to admit that they're racist even if they really feel it, that's okay.
Yeah, the awareness
I think you should lie about being racist. If you have those feelings, don't admit them. And one of the things that's happening now is this, Trump may be saying awful stuff, but he's really saying what all of us feel. Well, he's not saying what all of us feel, and even those of us who do feel that. There are certain tribal feelings that you worry when you read about terrorism, about Muslims coming in. There's a little bit of fear. There's this and that. I don't think it's good to admit that. Even if there's a little bit of that in you, I think it's okay to lie. And I think there's a sense in which publicly being your better self is a good thing.
Yes, I agree there.
Yeah, I think that if you do have feelings that aren't right, I don't think you have to say, "Oh, I have this feeling and that's okay. I'm accepting it." And I think you can just say, "No, I don't feel that."
Yeah. Perhaps the self-awareness that you shouldn't feel that way is the best we can hope for.
Yeah, exactly. Until the next generation comes out and they no longer have that,
Right.
Until that's gone. I mean,
what do you think about the Oprah thing where she was saying, all old white folks have to die for racism to go away?
Well, that's just true.
Right.
It's just true. And that doesn't mean that's something we celebrate, doesn't mean anything, but that's true. That's the way times change.
I mean, I haven't actually read her quote. I don't imagine she was trying to hasten that.
No, she wasn't at all. But there's a line that she should have used when she talked about the Me Too movement. She should have said, "I didn't just wear black, I am black." Why didn't she say that?
Yeah,
Wouldn't that have been a good line?
Yep.
I don't know. But Oprah was great. And certainly, Randi, we have huge problems with Oprah. I mean, she pushed for The Secret. She pushed anti-vaxxers. She has given a platform to all sorts of really dangerous, crazy people. I mean, there is a provable death toll from the anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hypothetical.
No.
It's not emotional. There are people dead who would not be dead if not for the
They
anti-vaxxers.
got numbers to prove it.
That being said, Oprah's heart is certainly in the right place.
Oh, yeah.
On, I think, everything.
Yeah.
You know, she has been wrong, but never evil. I think she considers what other people feel, and I think she has compassion and concern, and I think all that's true and all that comes across. Right now, there'd be a huge amount forgiven for anyone who isn't overtly racist and stupid.
Yeah.
You know,
Hopefully.
yeah, you go a little. But yes, I think if Oprah were to run for president, I would love to hear her simply say, which I think is obvious and she must believe, I said some things on my show over all those years and had some guests on that I now know weren't right.
Yeah, and you can forgive her at that point.
Easily. And we've all been wrong in what we do and how we put stuff together, and having someone that admits that, and that would be. I mean, I would be willing to have anybody as a leader who will admit they're wrong on anything.
Well, politically, that's considered suicide at this point. That's considered changing horses midstream. I mean, we have specific problems with people who change their mind, which is crazy. Because if you can't learn something, if you can't change in your life, then... Well,
Hitchens wrote wonderfully about that.
Yeah.
Hitchens. Oh, you just said one of my gods.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hitchens, I miss him all the time.
Oh, yes.
And, every once in a while, I just have an imaginary essay from Hitchens as what he would be writing about current events now,
Oh, yes.
You can just do those... little snippets of what Hitchens.
And we lost him because he drank, and he.
What did he drink? Did
Hitchens
drink?
I believe so. Yeah.
Did he ever have a cigarette?
I believe so. Yes.
One of the things Hitchens said, which I don't know, it surprised me a little bit, but there's something admirable about it. He said that he did not regret the drinking or the smoking.
Oh, no, I remember reading that, yeah.
He said it was probably a cruel thing to say to his family, but he said he truly enjoyed it. And it was, one of the things I've never liked about being around people who are drinking is that they're diminished capacity. I'd like to have people at their best. But with Hitchens, if that was diminished, oh my goodness!
Think what was behind it
that
it could have come to the fore.
Yeah.
Hitchens was. I have a picture. I'm going to send you a print of it. Yes, I know exactly where it is. As a matter of fact, that I snapped one time of Hitchens sitting. He had not a cane as I have at this moment, but he had something in his hands. I've forgotten what it was. He was sitting looking rather grumpy, almost as if he didn't have a drink in him. And he was standing beside a door, which in huge letters, I don't recall where it was. It was a warehouse of some kind, and I don't know what I was doing in a warehouse. But it says, do not sit in front of this door. And he was on a chair with his jaw clenched, and he was sitting in front of that very door. And it's not a retouched picture. I'll have to send you a copy.
Oh, I need it because you want to put it right next to Keith Richards in American Immigration, next to a sign that says "Help keep America drug-free." There's a very famous picture of Keith Richards, really as high as anyone's ever been.
Yeah,
standing next to that sign. So put and Hitchens, do not stand in front of this door. Those are two to put side by side. Yeah, Hitchens, boy, lost him way too young.
And just what you read one paragraph, you turn any place in a Hitchens book, and you maybe 2 paragraphs. And you read 2 consecutive paragraphs there, and you realize what a giant.
You know, both Hitchens and I were doing the pundit circle really often. And before I knew Hitchens, I got to know him fairly well. But when I was just meeting him for the first few times, we would be on these, remote studios. You couldn't talk to him beforehand, just in a quad split to talk about the politics of the day. And I remember I'd see the guest list who's going to be on, Ann Coulter, pay no attention, who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, oh, Hitchens. And then I would go and desperately read everything I could about what Hitchens had said about that subject we were going to be talking about, and say, I need to find a way that nothing I say can be seen to disagree with him, because otherwise he will tear me apart. There's the picture of Hitchens right there.
Caution.
Yes, it is.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
Do not stand in front of this door. Yeah.
There were many times when we were talking to Hitchens, and we disagreed with Hitchens. And it was always very, very clear that we had just thought it out wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, my opinion's different than his. I have to find out why. I got to fix it.
Arguing with Hitchens is like having a traffic accident with a police officer. You know very well who's wrong right away.
No questions there.
No questions there. No discussion to be had.
No.
It was remarkable to be in that situation where they're trying to get, and even if I was brought on specifically on the other side of an issue from Hitchens, I would find some weasel way. And then as I got to know him better, I would call him ahead of time and get a truce beforehand. Hitchens, I was going to say this, but I'm not gonna. And if I do stumble into this, please do not rip me a new asshole.
You just call him and ask him what your opinion should be. Yeah. That's going to be slightly different than his, so that we can have a discussion.
Well, the thing about Hitchens that was amazing is if you started to argue with him, like we disagreed very much on Iraq and the wars over there and the interventions in George W. Bush. We agreed very much and disagreed very much. And when you would start a disagreement with Hitchens, the awful thing was he would state your position better than you were going to state it, perfectly clearly. I just heard this term a while ago, and I love this term. You may not have heard it. He would not do a straw man argument. He would do a steel man argument. And that's a term that people have started using for someone who takes your point, makes it stronger, and then demolishes it.
Yeah, build it up just a wee bit. Just prop it up a little bit, and then let it fall from a higher distance.
Yeah, just so the guy knows that you understand his position, and he could do better. He couldn't do better than you've done, and he's still wrong.
Every time you see him arguing with someone in a religious setting, that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let me state your side for you, and now I'll tell you why your side's wrong.
There's a wonderful video that's pretty well known of Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens are arguing against 2 cardinals, and the subject is religion a good thing in the world?
Try to think of the title of that program, but that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But what I love about the way the one was edited that I saw was Stephen Fry gives this speech very personally about gay persecution in the church and all sorts of other things. Is the religion a good thing for the world and Africa and so on, and goes on and gives this really, really eloquent, perfect speech, and he's done. And then he walks over to sit down, and he's sitting next to Hitchens. And Hitchens is just smiling confidently, and so is Stephen Fry, because you realize they've led with their weak guy. They've led with Stephen Fry. And Stephen Fry, probably one of the best public speakers I have ever heard, and he's the weak guy on the team.
The opposition is in big What's the expression? Deep shit.
Yeah, they're in deep shit. They're in real trouble. But yeah, that 1-2 punch.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, by the way, you're going to be fighting, and when this guy's done with you, Tyson's taking over.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody asked right on this show. We had people calling in about you during the hurricane in Florida and all of that.
That was quite an interesting experience.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Oh, yeah, because I locked everything up, of course, and put away all the dishes. I don't know why.
We were trying. We were trying so hard to get your ass out of Florida and to Vegas. My wife was working constantly.
Oh, yeah, I
trying
know.
to get you on a flight.
yes.
And we were trying to get you here and there. We had, I think, 5 flights for you that we bought, and they
Yeah.
just kept getting canceled because everybody here was going, get Randy out of Florida, and Davey, but get Randy out of Florida. And we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it was just astonishing. Coming back after the storm, I saw trees down across the approach to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be terrible. I pictured broken windows and flooded floors and all that sort of thing. And I kept on thinking of my important papers. Now, I had allowed for them because I'd put them away in a very safe place, but still, I didn't know what had happened. Nothing had happened. It's astonishing. The storm gods apparently didn't work out. And now I have a frightening thing. I can see all the neighbors' homes.
All
And I
your leaves
couldn't
are
see
gone.
that before. I was,
Not the leaves, Godot.
Oh, the whole
the
trees?
that's true. No, the trees that went, we had to pay a fortune to have them hauled out.
Wow.
It was terrible. But just damage. But trees grow, I'm told.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and if you just leave them alone, they do pretty well by themselves. And so I'm told that there are green sprouts coming up, and
Great.
it's looking very good. I'll be back there tomorrow.
Yeah, you're flying back there tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what have you done when you were in this little trip to Vegas? You went to CES, right?
Yes.
And what miracles did you see there?
Well, describing miracles, is I tend to get superlatives in there, too much altogether. But no, I didn't see any real miracles at CES, I must admit.
But you saw some virtual reality stuff, right?
Oh yeah. Davey saw most of that. I was
Davey was saying it was a miracle.
I was improperly suited for travel at that time. I had another attack, a stroke, and that slowed me down a great deal, I found out. But I did all right, and Davey, he hasn't stopped talking. He's probably with somebody in the other room right here talking about that virtual reality. God,
It's crazy.
some stuff there.
We're doing a lot with a company, Gearbox, Randy Pitchford.
Oh yeah.
Who I love Randy Pitchford except for his name. So Piff and I, because we had Amazing Randy and Randy Pitchford both coming to see the Piff and Pop show,
Right.
we have changed Randy Pitchford's name. He's now called Mundane Randy. So we have Mundane Randy and Amazing Randy.
Okay, well, I'll take mundane, but if he needs
No.
me to.
You got Amazing.
You were in
I
first.
got,
Yeah,
I
You
got,
got in early.
You are great grandfathered in, Randy.
I was looking for some agreement on that.
It's all done. It's all done.
Thank
You
you.
got that.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to talk about the New Year's resolution you could actually keep, and that is add stamps.com to your business and save a ton of time and money this year. You can do so much. We do all our mailing with stamps.com. Remember when you were sending stuff out, you had like a postage meter?
Oh, I
and you had
remember all. Oh, yes.
all that stuff. Now you do it all with your computer. Just boom, and it prints it out, all done. Stamps.com brings all the amazing services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your computer. Stamps.com is a better way to get postage. Simply use your computer to print official U.S. postage for any letter or package, any class of mail, and let the mail carrier pick it up. No leaving the office, no more lugging mail to the post office, no more hassle. Almost everything you can do at the post office, you can do right from your desk. Plus, Stamps.com has postage discounts you can't get at the post office, which, just for you to know, Penn Jillette thinks that's illegal. I don't think you should be able to get better deals, but you can. Not to mention, it's a fraction of the cost of those super expensive postage meters. Convenient, easy, reliable, efficient. We use Stamps.com for everything. The long-suffering Laura in the office. If you write in for an autographed picture of Penn and Teller, or for an autographed picture of Laura, or the long-suffering Glenn, it'll be sent to you with Stamps.com. Right now, you too can enjoy the Stamps.com service with a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale.
Yeah.
Ready for a Happy New Year? Go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, and type in
Penn.
That's Stamps.com. Enter
Penn.
Penn. So Randy, Randy came to see us in the Piff and Pop show.
Really? How was the Piff and Pop show?
It went really, really well.
yeah.
Let's hold on and talk about that for the next section. You think?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a big story.
Yeah, it's a
This
big
is
story.
a big
We'll talk
story.
about Piff and Pop. Now, did you ever get, I just got this done. Did you ever get a life cast of your head made, Randy?
I know, but I had a laser scan.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where that material is right now. In the bottom drawer someplace.
Yeah, I just went because we're doing a trick.
Oh.
I told Handsome Jack. I don't know if you know Handsome Jack, but I was having supper with Handsome Jack in L.A. and I said, this afternoon I just got a whole scan of my face made for a trick we're doing. And Handsome Jack said, "Well, a trick that won't fool me."
Thanks
now
for
that
announcing it.
But I had a cast made of my head in the '80s.
Did you do one in clown
For a
college?
movie. I didn't.
I did one in clown
I did a nose one.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the whole head.
I did a whole face one in clown
yeah.
college. Yeah.
You didn't do a whole head.
Not
though.
a whole head, no.
No. And
That's crazy. The photos of you in it are crazy.
it's a crazy, crazy experience. When I got it done, it was much slower in the '80s, and you spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
And he told me a really interesting thing, and I'm so fascinated by false memories. Okay, and especially the false memories that are cultural. Now, this one's a fascinating one because it's so trivial. Okay, so they're starting to cover me up with all the it's an alginate, super alginate silicone mixture that they're going to put on your face. Okay,
Penn is stroking his face now with his fingers.
I am.
You're supposed to know that.
But they're putting it all over my face, and I said to him, the last time I got this done, they put little straws in my nose
Oh, yeah.
to keep them open so I wouldn't smother. And he said, I don't think they did. And I said, no, I think they did to keep them open when they're putting it around. He said, I don't think they did. He said, everybody we have in here that's had a mask before talks about having the straws in their nose. And he said, as far as we know, no guys that made casts have ever done that. I said, well, not recently, but in the 80s. He went, no, not in the 80s. I said, well, they would put it in to keep your, he says, and we have a lot of pictures of everybody getting the cast made, and no one has straws in their
Did it ever occur to you that maybe you're dead?
Isn't that remarkable?
I have the plaster mask. I'll have to go home and look.
Yeah.
I still have the mask.
You believe it, don't you?
I do believe it. I do, and I'm positive. I'm even sure we talked about it being McDonald's straws because they were the big ones at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I have really very distinctive memories about it.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
He says
Like I said,
no.
I have the mask at home. I'll have to go look now.
He says no. He says no. He said maybe they did for you, but he said we can't find anybody else they did it for. And he said without exception, everybody that comes in here says they had straws, even when we have pictures of them doing it without straws.
Uh-oh.
Isn't that a
So
nutty
how did you
thing?
breathe while they did it?
They just you just don't put it in your nose.
All right.
They put the mask around you,
Okay.
and you breathe fine.
You were there.
I believe you.
It's crazy, but it's a nutty feeling because last time was a lot longer, and they put all the goo all over your head.
The releasing stuff.
And then over that, they put the big plaster of Paris wrap to keep it firm. And it sits there and dries. And you can't hear, you can't see, your face can't feel.
And it's warm, right?
It's warm. And
That's called dead.
exactly, except for the warm part, Randy.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But you're breathing through your nose. And what I discovered last time was that I was driven crazy by the smells. I could smell everyone's deodorant. I could smell their breath. I could smell their soap. You know, someone would put their arm up near my face, reaching across, and I would smell. Oh, I know that's a soap smell.
Lifebuoy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All of a sudden, everything came down to smell. And this time I was in it much less time. But you really do to change your perception of the world, because all of a sudden, that's all I had.
Right.
So I went, oh, that guy who smells a
Became
little
sharp,
bit like
and
that.
you were Sniffy, the superhero.
Yeah, he's a little bit closer to me now, and you'd have that that feeling and that understanding.
Oh, that's cool.
It was just a pretty great thing. But also, smell. When we've gone on this, Godot and I are both on a very big lifestyle and diet change. We both lost a huge amount of weight, and we both are vegan.
Yeah.
And Piff lost 25 pounds to do his TV show.
Yeah.
And he went vegan. And he went out last night and decided he'd have a celebration feast where he'd go off that. And he went, boy, the smells of food after you've changed what you eat are really not pleasant.
Yeah.
He said, I found butter sickening. And the lobster, he said, was really unpleasant. He said, I just didn't like, I was trying to celebrate with everybody. I was just going, boy, I'd like some plain corn on the cob.
Try garlic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But even garlic is a different experience when you don't have it mixed with butter. It's a very different thing as an herb and a vegetable than it is as a goop. It changed without the salt. It's a different thing.
It's different as a goop.
But there's all sorts of things, you would never have. I mean, I didn't really think vegetables tasted that different one from another, and now that's everything.
Difference.
That's constant. But it's and also when I went on this big diet change, after the show, we meet everybody and thank them and take pictures and sign autographs. The smell of people changed entirely. I was then very aware of how people smelled.
Wow.
Which I'd never been before. It's kind of like when
Are you noticing it on yourself now? Do you notice
Yes.
yourself? Because I go, oh, look at that, my sweatshirt smells funny.
Yeah, I smell,
Everything is all of
I
a
smell
sudden.
the soap.
Yeah.
And I don't know how a change to no animal products and less fat and stuff would change your sense of smell. But everybody seems to report that.
It's very
They
strange.
seem to report that. Because also, Randy, one of the reasons you're so healthy as you age is also you've never been particularly fat or overweight or had a bad diet or anything.
No,
You've lived your life very, very well.
Well, by mistake in most cases. I had as a youth, I had a lot of very hungry days. Rising in the magic profession.
That's right.
So you went right from high school into right into magic.
Yeah, pretty well. Of course, I had the ambition very, very strong to do that, and I met Harry Blackstone at that time, and he encouraged me somewhat.
Now, were you doing paid shows while you were in high school, junior high?
Yeah, a few. A few, yeah. And
But it was Canadian money, so it's not real.
yeah, Canadian money. Yes, that's true. But yes,
Do you remember what the tricks were in your first magic act, the acts you did in high school?
yeah. Well, I did. Don't have a piece of rope here. Huh? I did some escape tricks, and
So you started right away with escape.
yeah, pretty well, because I discovered a couple of really good rope ties, as we call them, and the instructions that they gave in the magic books were terrible. You
used to have to use a lot of imagination.
Oh
didn't you?
yeah, you had to use a strictly large amount of imagination.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that just casually. You had to figure out what they really meant to say.
We were yesterday at my house. We had a rehearsal because we want Moxie for my daughter for the close of one of the shows to do what was called the Georgia Magnet Act.
Yeah,
act
sure,
from
of
the
course.
19th century. And we had Randy, Teller, Piff, and this wonderful magician named Sophie Evans,
Yeah, Sophie.
who's done the act. And we had, I think, every bit of literature written on this.
Oh, yeah, you had volumes there.
And just Xeroxes of magazines. And Piff had brought everything from his library. Teller brought everything from his library. He knew Teller's library is astonishing. Sophie had everything from hers. Just stacks of stuff. And going through and trying to figure out on one particular trick how a chair is supposed to be held in a picture.
Yeah.
It's amazing how completely opaque the writing on that
That's
stuff
true,
is.
very true. 'Cause you read the thing, and when you finish reading the paragraph, you say, what? And you go back to the beginning of the paragraph. It doesn't make any more sense, no matter how many times you read it.
That's why people, I think, learn so much faster with YouTube now. I mean, we lose a lot of the variations and the and the exploration that used to happen, like you said, because it was so difficult to understand the instructions. You had to play with it to figure it out, and so many people develop their own way to do specific card moves or coin moves.
And it also you had a platonic ideal in your head
Right.
of how it should look, and you were trying to go toward that, and now you're going toward another person doing it, which is very different.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And also, Teller's driven crazy by people forget that print is a really, really fast random access machine. You can take a 10-page description. You can go through that in 15 seconds and find the exact paragraph you want to read. And some tricks that are coming out now, Teller will see a great trick and wanna find it. So we do the proper channels. He goes and buys it. And they send the trick and they send a DVD. And then Teller says you have to watch him perform it. And then watch him perform it in another circumstance. And then watch him talk about it.
Yeah, you
and
have
then
to
watch him do this.
Exactly. Let me tell you how I discovered this trick. I don't care.
And then you speed through, and you then have sped through the one sentence you want, which is, oh, it's a double-sided card. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I needed.
Yeah.
That right here is a double-sided. So Teller's driven crazy because Teller says, Teller is, I think, needless to say, very, very advanced in dealing with magic methods. So you can give him a 10-page description of a trick, and he will get what he needs out of it in 35 seconds. You give him a 45-minute DVD, even skipping stuff, that's going to take him 15 minutes.
Yeah, fast forward, fast forward.
And then you go buy it, and then you go back.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Where would it be?
Yeah.
And it's just not as interactive.
Right.
But you do have the actual information there. So I think for someone starting out, the DVDs are much better. For someone who's advanced, they're much, much worse. Because what you want to hear then is do a card force, do a deck switch, boom. That's where we're into the meat of it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to teach that on the Teller don't need it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up because we'll do another show right now, Randy, that goes out Wednesday. So we do about 2 hours, but we do them Sunday and Wednesday. But for now, with Amazing Randi, that was Penn Sunday School.
That was Penn Sunday School.
Cha-cha-cha.
And to our listening ears,
You become naked.
all nature sang and round us rang the music of the spheres. And was
By the way, in your introduction, you should have mentioned that Randy is not only the star of, but the subject of, and everything in a wonderful documentary called An Honest Liar. And I think it's on Netflix. So you go to Netflix, check out An Honest Liar. Also, Randy has 11 books out. That's James Randi, Randi.
We get to do another intro right now.
We're going to do it right now, yeah. And I love you, and so does Randy.
stand by for the Wednesday episode.
Okay.
My coffee got cold.
We give him another coffee?
How did that happen?
We do have a
Don't-
microwave.
don't touch it.
We have a microwave. We can heat it up.
It's okay. I'll take it cold. I like to suffer.
Okay, let's go.
Hold on.
We're waiting for Godot? Yep. Okay. I wasn't making a joke. I wasn't making a joke. I was actually saying the sentence. I didn't mean to say waiting for Godot. I always try to avoid saying that.
Yeah. It's like when you have friends who are named Jack. You can't start the email with "Hi, Jack." You just can't.
Never thought of that.
Oh, yeah.
Make a note. Make a note.
I had a bartender.
What's that?
I had a bartender whose name was Jack, and he would say that to everybody. Every time they said "Hi, Jack." Yeah. Don't say that on an airplane.
Oh, yeah. I guess that would be your joke if your name were Jack.
And after, I thought he was insulting me, like after the 50th time,
Mm-hmm.
that I wouldn't remember the joke. But that rule of 100.
Yeah, you got funny.
Yeah, I got funny again.
Yeah.
I got to do that same ad we did last week again. I don't know why. I guess they revised it.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what's changed, but we'll do it anyway.
You want to use the bathroom before we start the next show? Are you good? Or
No, I'm good. Well, that way.
Thought you were doing the Steve Martin joke for a second there.
Hit it.
This is Penn Sunday School, and to our listening ears, all nature sings and round us rings the music of the spheres. This is Penn Sunday School.
brothers and sisters, welcome to Penn Sunday School, starring Penn Gillette. My name is Michael Godot, and we are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas. It's time for another show with the subject of the movie, An Honest Liar, author of 11 books, the grandest skeptic of them all. We have him all right here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Amazing Randi is here. And here is Priest of Love, Mr. Penn Gillette.
Just so you know, Randy, don't feel special. Godot has never done an introduction right ever.
Yeah, I know.
Not once. He always stumbles through them. Some people find that charming.
I don't.
I think
We can
skeptimum is
shoot it
a
again.
fine word.
Skeptimum.
Skeptimum.
The grandest skeptimum of them all.
Skeptimum. So you said you were working on organizing another book. Is that right?
Yes.
Book 12.
Book 12, yes, indeed. Book, it sounds like something out of the Bible.
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Book 12 of the Randi
Make no
stories.
mistakes on that. Yes, I am, and I'm trying to herd it into shape.
Yeah.
It's a collection of notes over many years. It's running too long, and I'm going to have to take out a lot of commas and such just to
Yeah.
shorten it down. But yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. And is that what your days are like now, looking over that a little bit?
Yeah, and crying a lot. Yeah.
Do you like slowing down? How does it feel getting older? Is there any parts you like about it? I know you've had your incidents and you had heart problems and all sorts of stuff that you get when you get older, but what parts of it are you liking, Randy?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if I like any parts of it, but no, it's people treat you differently if they think that you're over the hill. I'm not over the hill. I'm over the bumps. But yeah, people sort of respect you, and so I don't want to be respected. I want to be feared. but that doesn't always work out that way.
Who do you feel? Whenever someone asked me about being learning about skepticism, and which is really, skepticism is a nutty way to put it. It's just pro science.
Yeah.
Where do you who do you believe people? Do you Shermer still doing great stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Still Shermer, and you still like Bill Nye
Oh, yeah.
doing good science stuff. Who else is out there that you pay attention to doing good skeptic stuff?
That's a good question, because I don't know who currently is in the field, that's contributing enough that you could say that they are still active in the field.
But it's really funny because now the skeptics movement, as I knew it in the 70s, less so, 80s and 90s, there was a lot of reaction to that, like it doesn't matter. There's these people, so someone says that they can, mentally control their goldfish. So someone says they can facilitated communication with people with extreme autism. So they can do these and those things. Those don't really matter. Give people their hope. Let them just go. I think that part of what we're seeing in the present political climate, I don't think I'm putting too fine a point on it to say that comes directly from sloppiness of critical thinking. Don't you see that direct line?
Oh, yeah.
To the
Absolutely, yes. You got to be very firm when you express your opinion. I try to do it as succinctly as I can, but that's often difficult. There's so much information out there, so many claims and such out there, that it's really hard to keep up to it.
Yeah, Chip Denman he coined this great phrase where he said it was epistemological hedonism. If it feels good, believe it.
I can't even say that.
But what we saw with the 9/11 truthers, and with the Obama birthers, and with the anti-vax people, and the anti-GMO people, is, and I'm picking those examples carefully because they go both left and right, both left and right
on both sides.
You end up with this way of thinking that if your friends believe something, and if you want to believe something, and if you can read that something on the internet, then it's okay to act as if it were true, even if you have doubts.
How do you spell bullshit? Yeah, no, I disagree with that altogether.
Well, you disagree with what? Oh, if that you can go along with that. What I'm saying is that lack of skepticism, I believe, can start out fairly harmless.
Oh, yes.
And then grow into, we have a country now that seems to be, in some cases, content with not agreeing on facts.
That's right.
And once you're content at not agreeing on facts, you've got all sorts of problems.
Are also content, perhaps, on not expressing an opinion right out of the blue and getting in there. There are so many ways of contacting people now and making your opinions known that so many people just ignore those procedures. I haven't been doing much writing, new writing, that is, and the reason for that, I think, is because I'm just slowing down. But that irritates me. I want to get out there and I want to start screaming at people.
Yeah, and this I love the idea of disagreeing, and I love the idea of learning and disagreeing that way. And I even like that on political and philosophical things. But once you've taken the underpinning of what we agree are the facts, all of a sudden all the fun goes away. It's just who's louder and who tells a better story.
Right. That's right.
And in some cases, an easier story.
Yeah.
And that's the part that can be the most troubling.
Yep.
Is this story is nice and easy to understand, and therefore we'll go with it. And of
Simple
course,
to accept.
every story, every idea is an oversimplification. There's no way
course,
around
has to
that.
be.
But we have to find out how far we can go on the oversimplification before it gets into nonsense. And of course, the examples that are given all the time are the crowds at Trump's inauguration, as opposed to Obama's. But I don't
The
think
largest crowd ever gathered, by the way.
I don't think those are the ones that matter at all. It's just the idea that one of the ones that bothers me so much is the simple statement that crime is up. We're living in a place where crime is terrible in all these cities. Well, crime is down by every single measurement you can possibly do. And yet all these things are being built on that. I mean, Jeff Sessions talks about how dangerous marijuana is and it leading to all this crime that isn't. It's the opiates that were prescribed that are causing the problems. It's not the recreational. Yes. I just think it's important for three people who don't smoke dope to stick up for those who want to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree with you.
Were you going to say something?
Do you think that this comes partly, at least, from the political correctness? The idea that we're not supposed to disagree with people anymore.
Yeah, I think that's so weirdly a weird kind of backlash. You are considered, when you're in a group of people, that you're supposed to smile and nod.
Yeah.
When someone says to you, we're not doing vaccines for our children because we feel that that may be too much for the body to handle, and that may be causing some real problems. You will see people in the room, and if they're not a pediatrician or an asshole, they often shut up.
Yeah.
I was involved in one of these conversations a couple of days ago in Baltimore. I was part of the asshole team.
Yeah, what happened?
I said, "No, ma'am, you're just wrong." There was a bartender at a bar I was at arguing that if she ever had kids, she was not going to vaccinate them. This is why. And this other guy, fantastic, had all the info. You know what I mean? These are all the result of Wakefield studies, these lies. He was paid for this. He did this. He's not a doctor anymore. All these things are. Well, she said, well, that's just wrong. You're just lying about it. I said, no, he's right. And that was the end. that was my involvement. No, he's right. See ya.
And but that kind of attitude, and also there's this thing that that's happening, and I'm very, very. I don't like to blame the internet for things because when I look at my son, and my son can have just a passing interest in something and find it right away. I used to have to go to the library.
Oh, yeah.
Frank Zappa would mention Kafka. Okay, there's this guy named Franz Kafka. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Get on the bicycle, ride to the library.
I have to write down. First off, I have to write down Kafka because when I get there, I'll be going coffee. I came here to research coffee.
Yeah.
Now, Kafka is blue, and I click on it, and it goes to Kafka.
But there is one thing. A friend of mine was doing research for a film he was making that had to do with, I forgot what it was. It was some sort of illness that may be considered by many to be psychosomatic, right? So he typed in to YouTube a lot of search phrases on this. And all of a sudden, everything on his computer was, do you want to know more about 9/11 truthers? Do you want to know about birthers?
Right.
Do you want to know about UFOs? And these are not, there's no conspiracy here whatsoever.
These people, I think most
But you've
of them,
got algorithms.
Yeah.
You've got algorithms that are saying most people who click on this will also click on this. And that is going to send people in all sorts of directions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is not that people are liars, it's that they're wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem.
And there's nothing wrong with being wrong as long as you're prepared to correct it or change your approach to it.
I said this already on this show, but I think you might like it, Randy. A woman wrote this book called Being Wrong, and it's a wonderful book. But she has a quote in there that is terrific. We must remember what it feels like to be wrong. It feels exactly like being right.
That I want to copy.
Isn't that a nice one?
Yes.
And that is the hardest thing to remember.
Yeah.
It's really hard to remember the things that we were wrong about at the time we were wrong about them. We didn't know it. And there were no bells, nothing. We just felt, oh, that's the way it is. So, Randy, how much, I don't mean to be asking you questions that could be depressing, but after most of your life spent being the leader of the skeptics movement, what do you think were the big things accomplished by that? How much pro-science stuff got out there, and where do you think the most positive things are happening? If someone said, I'm listening to this now, Amazing Randi is my role model, which a lot of people are saying, we have to keeping skepticism into the future, what do you think were the areas you got the most accomplished in?
Well, I think just asking people to step back from statements that they've read and opinions they've read, even if it's Hitchens, for example, you can do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that Hitchens wouldn't have objected to it because he wanted to be looked into that deeply. And I think it's a touchy thing, though, Penn. It's very difficult to tell people how to consider what you've outlined for them and given proof of, mm-hmm. or detracted from. It's very difficult.
Now, have you had, when you did those great TV specials, I know the ones I'm thinking of were in Japan, but yeah. You did them, I think, in Australia as well. Mm-hmm. And you did these wonderfully photographable and conceptual busts of people who claimed things. You must have gotten wonderful reactions from people who previously believed and then learned from watching you. Is that right?
Well, in some cases, yes. But I will never forget the huge gentleman who attended one of my lectures. And the audience had mostly gone away. There were only a few people left in the auditorium, and he came up to me and with a big smile on his face, and he said, "I really liked what you said about so and so," and he gave me an example and everything. But were you told the young lady in the audience that you obviously didn't know, when you told her the date of her birth? You couldn't have known that just from studying her face. And I said, "That's right, it was a trick." No, I mean the thing where you told the woman the exact birthday. And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, that was a trick." "Oh, no, that wasn't a trick." Now, I know what a trick looks like, and that wasn't a trick. I guess it didn't have enough frills on it, mm-hmm. or mica flakes falling from the sky or something. I don't know. But some people, he was insulted, and he walked down the aisle mumbling to himself and saying he's a goddamn liar. That's not a trick. That's not a trick, because he had come up against something that he could not understand, and I wasn't about to rush down the aisle and grab him and say, "Here's how I did it."
Well, that is. I got a couple stories I want to tell here based on that, but there's this sense, and this is that people who are very well educated think that they can't be fooled. Oh, yeah. And there's something that you explained very clearly to me, which is you need to find a kind way to say to these people, while you were studying neurosurgery and learning to do brain surgery, I spent that hunk of my life learning how to do stupid tricks. So when we're dealing with the trick, I'm more skilled than you are. And that's your whole idea of a magician in the laboratory, is there are things that you've studied your whole life that others haven't. And the idea that we both knew Richard Feynman, very well.
Oh, yes.
And both knew how easy he was to trick.
Yes.
All you had to do was the same trick with 2 different methods, and he was gone.
That's right.
No chance. No chance. You do this stupid card trick, do it once one way, once another way. He would never consider the fact that the basic event he watched had changed.
Yeah.
And you would just fool him completely, gobsmacked. And because when he was working in physics, as spooky and as weird and as unreliable as that was, no one was cheating.
Right.
And you need someone looking at the cheating. That's a real
right.
that's a very
That's
important
it.
thing.
The scientists have all dealt with, professors, with their friends, with other people that are not lying to them. They may be wrong, but they are not lying to them. And when someone comes in who's willing to lie, they're entirely unprepared.
Yeah. No
That's also how magic shops work.
What's that?
Sell the guy the same trick 30 times in a row.
That's right. Yeah. That all the time.
Well, I did an extensive tour of Europe with the major purpose of it, I must admit, was to try to get into laboratories where they had come to ridiculous conclusions and try to correct them, try to show them there's another explanation for it. That I didn't mean that I would go in there and explain how a trick was done, but just show them that the evidence that they had based their conclusion on was incomplete or was wrong. And by golly, there are only 2 kinds of reactions. Either they looked at it and smiled and said, "That's very interesting, Mr. Randi, but this fellow is a real scholar." In other words, I'm not a real scholar, you see. You're just a performer.
Yeah.
Duh. That's one thing they would use, or they would come around and they would do a reversal on the thing. And that was very seldom that happened. That was very satisfying to me.
I don't know if you remember this, but in the book that changed my life, which was Flim Flam, probably the book that had the biggest impact on my life was Randy's book, Flim Flam. And in that book, you became a hero to me, but also someone else became a hero to me. In your chapter on dowsing, you tell the story of one, I don't remember the gender, I think it was a man, who came in to demonstrate the dowsing, and like everyone else who tried to demonstrate it, could not do it. And you then explained how it was done and how the evidence showed he couldn't do it, and went, "Oh, I guess I can't do it." How often have you run into that in all these years?
A few times. No, that's terrible to have to say, just a few times. But some of them were in tears. And some of them had come to my lecture. No, that's the thing I must also tell you, that at the end of every lecture that Davey and I have been doing, it's astonishing. We're left on the stage, and just a few people standing at the front of the stage looking up at us. And that's a spooky feeling. People looking up at you like that, with tears coming down their face, saying almost the same thing every time. "You made a big change in my life." Wow.
Well, yeah.
That is astonishing. That just something that they saw in the film that they were just shown, or in a book that I had written, not necessarily for them, but just written, and made a few points in, that they would say, "You made a big change in my life." You can't buy that, Penn. You can't buy that.
Well, Randy, there is not a form of communication that has been offered to me in which I have not said how much you changed my life. And now we're working on a VR project, and in the VR project, I'll be mentioning how much you changed my life. They will not be able to do a form of communication within my lifetime that I will not state that. But it is no exaggeration whatsoever to say that I would not be in magic if not for you. And there's no exaggeration to say that big parts of my personality would not exist if not for you. I mean, it's that simple. I'd given up on science and I'd given up on magic because of people lying to me, and it was you who set me up to be able to hear what Teller had to say. You know, it was that thing. It was that thing set up. But you know, there's not a form of communication or a day that goes by that I don't make that clear. And I am not alone. You know, there's a bunch of us out there. You know, there's a saying that not that many people saw the Velvet Underground, but everyone that did see the Velvet Underground started his or her own band. And Flim Flam was not the top of the bestseller list, but everybody that read that book went on to push for science and for skepticism. I think there's no doubt about that.
And Flim Flam is still being sold.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What printing is it in? Do you know?
Oh, I have no idea. It went through a lot of print. And they also, Prometheus books, thanks a lot. They really screwed up some things in there, too. They left a few pieces out because it saved 2 pages, maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's something I don't want to dwell on at all because I'm gnashing my teeth.
Yeah.
Yes.
At what point did you turn from the magic to the skepticism, and what was the reason for that?
Well, it was an automatic transference of all my efforts, just changing direction. Just it was a slight change of direction. It wasn't a great change of direction at all because it was all from the moment that I was into magic. I began to encounter these people who would say, "Oh, but I saw this, that, and the other thing," and I realized I needed a different setting. I needed a different preparation for this sort of thing, and Flim Flam was my first book to really express that properly, and I hope it did. I hope the idea got across that I was only telling people, this is a possibility, consider it. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, the idea, this separation that takes place between magic is tied in with stuff that's supernatural, and magic is tied in with something that's entertainment. That split starts with the discovery of witchcraft in the 16th century, the first book ever printed that we know of that separates tricks from supernatural events. That starts there. And then you have Houdini, who was very strong on that. I try as hard as I can to claim Houdini is an atheist. Just can't do it. He was a Jew his whole life.
Yeah.
He believed in God. We want very much to change those facts, but we can't. But Houdini did not like people doing tricks and claim it was real. And then you go directly from there to Randi. And it's really funny, you know, when I like David Blaine. I think David Blaine did the best magic show that ever was on TV. His first Street Magic special is the best. Good, hardworking guy. He's now touring a live show that is wonderful. Everyone I know that's seen it says it's great. All stunt stuff. And I've sat with David Blaine. And at least at the time we spoke, you know, people change all the time. He had a very different point of view. His point of view was people should leave a magic show believing things that are not right about the world. That is not an unintended consequence. That's an intended consequence.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is such a deep philosophical position.
It's precisely
Well,
the
I must
opposite.
tell you that his manager sent me a note at one point on email. I can't prove that it came from him, brother, but say, please don't speak to my artist any further because you've caused him some confusion. And I would rather have him as you first encountered him. And it went on a couple more paragraphs like that, but nothing that convinced me that my interference with him, philosophically, that is, in print, had really had anything to do with it. But he changed his email address, and I wasn't able to reach him from that moment on.
Wow. Yeah, he's a smart guy. He's a good magician, and that rule that I have, which I call the sawing a person in half rule, which is people come to the theater, they see someone saw a person in half on stage, and nobody, of course that's not literally true, you have children, maybe extremely mentally ill, whatever, but no one leaves the theater thinking they've witnessed the murder of a human being. And that is my goal in doing the show for every single thing I say.
Yeah.
That they must leave the theater not believing something that I myself know not to be true.
Yeah.
Now, I may convince them of things that are wrong, but there's things that I also believe. And that's very hard. I mean, you've watched me for 35, 40 years wrestle with how to do mentalism, mind reading, in a way that's entertaining
Yeah.
and also does not violate that principle.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people, they'll say, well, this isn't a mind reading trick, it's a memorization trick.
Yeah.
And that's also a lie.
Yeah.
Trying to say a trick is 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 a very difficult thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because one of the ways you fool people is by giving them a story, and the story that this is a trick they can't see is not a very good story.
Yeah, that's true.
And superimposing that over the events is difficult. It's why in our surveillance bit that you saw last night, we are doing something that I think has always been presented as mind reading, and we're doing it as a joke about keeping information safe that's written down.
Yeah.
And I actually I think it's a pretty clear statement of the method, how we do it right at the beginning when I say anything you write down can be found out. I mean, that if you wanted a one sentence on how do they do that trick, well, he just said it in the opening sentence.
Yeah. And it's not carbon paper that is the secret behind it.
No, it's not. We've gotten around carbon paper. We've gotten around electronics.
Oh, yeah.
That's the other thing I find so amazing about magic is how little the technology of the 20th century changed magic.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there are changes, no doubt about it. There are things that are used. There's a servo motor here or there. There's an earpiece here and there. But for the most part, lying technology kind of sort of stays the same.
Yeah. And there are so many things that we magicians could make use of that have not been explored. And I'm very fearful of the fact that suddenly somebody's going to get an idea and say, hey, how about all this technology? They have a machine that will, and to describe it to you, and then they'll use it in the act, and then they'll stand there taking the applause and not realize that maybe they have made a big error. That is a moral error. Yeah, because I believe there are such things.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it, and it's wonderful that doing a magic show, we can play with a morality that's very, very serious in a sandbox type way. I mean, the subject of every magic show is how do we ascertain what's true.
Yeah.
And I say every magic show, even by magicians who don't want that to be the subject.
Yeah.
It has to be the subject.
True.
Because that's why they came there.
Yeah.
To see something like that. And that's why when magicians claim that all of a sudden that was magic, but now I'm going to do something that's an experiment, you kind of go, what? Because a lot of times, people in labs will say, these have all been experiments, but now we're going to do a card trick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Doesn't come up that often. So, Randy, did you ever, when you made that very clear decision in your life in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s, to become the Amazing Randi, the skeptic, as opposed to the Amazing Randi, the scapologist, or Amazing Randi, the
Skeptimum.
skeptimum, the
See?
the king of cards, Randi, the stage magician. Do you ever look back and say, "What if I'd gone the David Copperfield route"?
Oh yeah, very frequently.
Do you
You look good in those suits.
Yeah, yeah.
do you miss the idea that you weren't a purely a performing magician from 70s on or so?
No, I don't miss it. No, I think that was the right decision.
Because I always I love I had to know you a long time. I was so interested in picking your brain about
I knew
skepticism,
somebody was picking my brain.
about skepticism and the morality and about truth and all of that stuff. That it wasn't until, the 80s or 90s that I started connecting with you on your real love of magic. When I said David Blaine's first special, your face just lit up. You really enjoy great magic tricks.
Oh, yeah.
And great magic shows.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love connecting with you that way too. That there's still that part of you that loves a good trick. And it was wonderful having you at the rehearsal with Moxie, and seeing
yeah.
how much you love putting together a magic trick.
Oh yeah, when you show that publicly, I can't wait to hear the reaction. It's going to be sensational.
Yeah, and I love to tell this story, but Moxie, when people say you're being taught magic by the best, she says, well, no, it's mostly Penn and Teller, but sometimes I get to work with Johnny Thompson and Randy.
Yeah. The best comes by the house sometimes.
Yeah. The best doesn't live in the house. The best comes by the house. My dad knows the best people in magic is Moxie's point of view, and of course she's right.
Yeah, of course.
But so it's been a good trip to Vegas this time.
Oh yeah, very interesting. And my partner Davey and I have seen some things that, Davey is raving, perhaps at this very moment in the other room, I'm not sure, raving about virtual reality. I mean, that really blew him away.
Now, we can also say, not just your partner, but your husband, Davey. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Now, when you were, 30 years old,
Yeah.
did you ever think you'd be able to
no.
publicly marry a man?
No, well, remember, I was born in Canada,
Yeah.
and that made a great deal of difference.
Did it really?
Oh, yes.
You thought it was much more okay?
No, I knew that it was something to be feared.
Oh, yeah, that's
That
right.
I
Yeah.
had to avoid.
Yeah.
And so I lived a good deal of my life living a lie.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed of it either.
No, I don't think it's very hard. If that had been your choice to be straightforward about that, that would have been your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you would have had to choose. At that time, you would have then been a gay activist.
Yeah.
There'd be no other job description for you.
Yeah, no, and you don't know how many times I was on the brink of doing exactly that.
But we do know the heroes of the gay movement and heroes of that particular civil rights fight, and we also know that they are known only as the heroes of those fights. They don't have anything else.
That's right.
Anything else they're doing, and you make that decision. You have to have to choose.
Yep.
And if you'd made that decision, we would have Randy, the very important fighter for gay rights. You would have been a huge help to that. But we would not have Randy, the importance of the skeptics movement.
That's right.
And I remember that the secret that you were gay being used by the other side
Oh, yeah.
in horrible ways that did nothing when they would bring it up to me in arguments, did nothing but weaken their side.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they didn't realize.
I've got to try to remember the name of a book. It was a small red book.
Mein Kampf? No.
No. It was supposed to be revealing the Amazing Randi. The truth.
That would have
about
been a good title. Revealing the Amazing Randi. That would have been a good title.
Something like that, yes. I can't remember the name, the title, but it's talk about a trashy book. I mean, they stretch any comment. If I said on something, that's the beginning of. They read all kinds of significance into things that I had said previously, and just in doing my regular performance and such, and they tried to prove that I was a really nasty, negative person, and I don't think it worked at all. In fact, I think that anyone who picked up that book and read 6 or 8 pages of it would soon realize they could put it down and forget it.
This is. I don't know what we feel about this, and I'm putting us together on this. But as you know, a few years ago, Magic Association honored Uri Geller.
Oh yeah.
They honored him.
Oh yeah.
At a Florida convention.
Yeah.
And I think I'm almost sure but Teller and I were scheduled to be on the cover of the magazine with a big feature story. And we pulled the story. We said, we will not be in your magazine. It was the cover of Genie. We would not let Genie print our picture on our story. We pulled away our permissions because they made him that. And yet, honoring Uri Geller as a magician is the supreme win for Amazing Randi.
Oh yeah.
It's all you were ever saying.
Right.
It's the only thing you ever said about Uri Geller, was that he was doing tricks.
Well, in my coming book, there's going to be an Appendix A. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it is. If I'm lying, then don't read B and C and D and wonder what I did, that I was trying to deceive them. Geller is disappeared. I don't know where he is. He and Shippy Strang, his associate, let's put it that way loosely, and the whole family moved back to Israel. And I don't know what happened to them. This is interesting. If anybody out there knows...
Weren't they living in Scotland or something?
No, in England.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in England, on Sonning-on-Thames. That sounds very official, doesn't it? And Geller, he probably still has a home there, but the whole gang moved out all of a sudden, and I haven't been able to get any response from people I've asked about it. Do you know what happened to Uri Geller? I don't know. And I'm rather mystified by that. Mystified by Geller.
He finally fooled you.
Yes.
Something we can't explain.
But it is funny because we go back in time to 1968, 69. Uri Geller starts to be known a little bit in the early 70s. He does his spoon-bending jive. Amazing Randi comes out and says, it's a trick. Uri Geller says, yes, it is a trick. Side of American Magicians gives him an award. We're done.
Yeah.
It's all he had to do.
You would think so.
It's all he had to do. And then 50 years later, he accepts an award from Magicians, and all that award said, even though Teller and I boycotted it, all that award says is one simple sentence: James Randi was right. Because if he really had those powers, there's not a reason on earth for the Magicians to honor him.
Exactly.
Not a reason on earth.
Exactly.
Not a reason on earth.
Exactly.
The Magicians did not honor Neil Armstrong for pretending to be on the moon.
What is the name of there's a web page out there. What is it called? Oh, yeah, Jew Watch. Could you imagine? And it starts out with Uri Geller, and it mentions him hundreds of times in this very long document, and somehow they have taken out all mention of Uri Geller, and they have put in the something like the enchanted Uri Geller or something like that. They've replaced a lot of, and they're in brackets for some reason. These phrases are in the middle of this document. I don't know who did that or why they did it and such, but it makes a strange document that neither says that Geller is the real thing or says that he's not.
Well, you can find on the web that I am CIA and I am a Zionist.
Oh, I've never read that about you, Ben.
Yeah, because of bullshit. There are many, some of the people that we attacked have said that I was put into place by the CIA to do bullshits that were obviously good and real, so people would believe me, so then I could attack them.
Well, now maybe that's true.
Maybe that's true.
I
Yeah,
got to think about.
you were
yeah.
right about everything except this.
Yes, thank you.
It's always that. Boy, when you said this, and this, you were right on. But boy, when you talk about chiropractors, that's where I got to draw the line.
Well, I hate to return to this, but it's very important to me. At the end of film showings of An Honest Liar, and it's available free out there. You can download it anytime you want. It's truly astonishing. You should see. I know that I show it in my expression. When the people come up to the front edge of the stage and they say, "You made a big change in my life." Now, they almost all use that expression, "You made a big change in my life." That's very serious, Penn.
Yeah.
That's extremely serious. To me, it's very serious, and I'm almost always driven to tears by it.
Well, yeah. Well, people, many people, religious people, talk about what's the meaning of life. If you don't have a God,
Yeah.
then what's the purpose of living a good life? What's the purpose of doing anything? And I believe you've just answered that many times over. The purpose is other people. You changed my life. You made my life better. And I don't know why you need anything more than that. I mean, it seems like, as you say, they always have tears in their eyes, and it chokes you up when you say it, because it's the truth, and it's all that matters. It's what life is. Life is the love we have for everybody and for each other, and what we can do to change each other's lives for the better and get closer to truth.
Not only the love you have for other people, it's the consideration you have for trying to get the message to them. Just the simple message. These are tricks.
Yeah.
And Geller doesn't enter into my life at all now.
No.
Not at all. Not in any way that I can imagine.
It was the first time, when they did that Florida thing.
Yeah.
It was the first time I'd even heard of him in 20 years. I guess he did there was some jive TV show that he did for a bit, but it was.
We've all worked magic conventions, and they don't pay well.
Very true. Very true.
If he's doing one, we haven't seen him in 20 years.
Well, that is everything, isn't it?
There you
But
go.
Geller did very well with it. Oh, yes. Over the years, he did very well.
Oh, he made a couple, $2-3, yeah.
Yeah. But what's happened to him now is sort of mysterious. I don't care. I really don't care.
Well, we care enough to bring it up. I mean, it is
care
funny.
But I'm just puzzled by it. It's just sort of strange that he suddenly vanished from the scene altogether.
Yeah, just disappeared. Yeah, boy, it's so strange. It may come down to something very, very simple. When you say, why didn't Uri Geller admit right away he was doing tricks and go on with his career? And the answer may be a simple declarative sentence. He wasn't good enough. Maybe just that.
But it
You
might
knew one
be.
trick.
It might be. I wrote him a couple of very formal letters saying that I would support any reversal that he wanted to make, and I would let him off the hook gently. I don't know whether I used that term exactly, but I meant it, and he never responded.
Oh, wow. Well, how much would you pay to see a special 10-minute presentation at a magic show of a two-person act of Geller and Randy? Excuse me, Randy and Geller.
Thank you very much. I was about to correct you.
They just do the cups and balls, just something simple.
Or the cup and ball.
The cup and ball, yeah. Do a chop cup.
That's right.
We're done, but just for fun, tell me more about your relation with Harry Blackstone.
Oh, that was very interesting because Harry Blackstone, when he retired, he took up residence at the was it Riverland Hotel or something? It's a residential hotel just off Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And, poor old Harry. Oh, I felt so sorry for him because he would just shake his head and say, this woman I married, not a good decision. Not a good decision. And he would sort of sigh, and I wouldn't pursue it because I didn't want to start any gossip going. And but Harry told me one thing. Now I think this should interest you. He was sitting with me once on a hot Sunday afternoon, because I usually went to visit him from New Jersey on Sundays, and he said to me that he was waiting for the right moment to reveal this to me, and he said, one of these days, and he did the finger in my face thing, you're going to have such a surprise. You're going to have a total revolution of your whole way of thinking about your life and what you've been doing. And he was approving of what I was doing with the skeptical attitude and such. And he said, I don't know how you're going to take that. And I left the hotel thinking, that's an old man talking. And literally, yes, I did lose some respect for Harry Blackstone at that moment. But it was only about 2 months after that I was in a small school in New Jersey someplace where the instructor came to me. He said, listen, this crowd is very, very bad. They throw things at the performer. We don't worry about that. If you'll brave this thing through, I'm sure you'll come out all right. And they won't hurt you. They won't hurt you. And so I walked out there, and they were screaming and throwing things at the curtain, throwing things at me, and I just spoke like this in a very calm voice with a big smile. And they suddenly, shh, listen to it. And I got them quietened down, and I finished the show. And I looked off stage, and the staff was standing there astonished because nobody had ever been able to control this crowd. But just by speaking very low like this, I got them, and they rode me around the auditorium on their shoulders after the Straight Jacket Escape, which was my finale in this thing. And I came back. I remember I went to the dressing room, and I was removing makeup, and suddenly I thought to myself, this is what Harry was talking about.
Yeah.
One of these days this is going to happen. And I couldn't wait to get back to New York and run to the Royalton Hotel and practically bust in the door, I guess. And he was there, and he looked up surprised. And I told him the story, and he broke out in tears. Harry Blackstone was a good human being, a really good human being. Yeah. And he admitted to me a lot of the mistakes he'd made over the years, always very amusing, of course. Mm-hmm. The times that they didn't have enough food, and they had to go on. They had to stay that night in the hotel without any breakfast the next morning and such, and they didn't know how they were going to do it, and they couldn't even talk properly. But Harry fought all that and won and became the world's greatest living magician.
He was. And you know, Bob Dylan, when Bob Dylan talks about a magician, he talks about when he was in grade school, one of his favorite performers he ever saw was
Really?
Harry Blackstone. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He just loved him.
Oh, Harry.
And he can describe the whole act, every
Oh,
trick he did.
Yes, and I'll bet I'd like to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, oh, loved it. Yeah, it was a big influence on him.
But see, that thing that Harry told me, that one day I'd have that experience, I was overcome. I just stopped removing the makeup and everything. I looked into the mirror and I said, "You ass." That's what Harry told you, and now you've had the experience.
Yeah, my parents saw him and just loved him.
Oh yeah.
Teller saw him when he was very young. When
Yeah.
Teller was very young, great performer, Harry Blackstone.
Oh yeah. He was a magician.
Yeah, he was a magician.
Oh yeah.
And another magician here is James Randi, who I think we can all stand by the edge of the stage with tears in our eyes and say, you know, Randy, you changed our life.
You really changed our lives. We can't
This is-
thank you enough.
That was Penn Sunday School.
That was Penn Sunday School.
Cha-cha-cha.
And to our listening ears,
You become naked.
all nature sang and round us rang the music of the spheres. That was
Yeah, next week we'll talk about whatever we talk about. We did the whole thing about Randy, didn't get to anything else. Tough.
Got some catching up to do.
Yeah. And this Friday night, I'm going to go see Celine Dion.
Hey, you're on TV tonight.
Oh, yeah, Crashing. On TV tonight, Crashing with Pete Holmes.
On
Pete Holmes Show,
HBO.
HBO. Watch it. You know, we all love Randy.
Well, gentlemen,
Fabulous.
Stand by.